Okay, yeah. There we go. Well, thank you so much for being here. I know the weather was kind of getting a little scary, and I want to thank you for just sharing your time and energy with me. Today, we will be going through what is considered states of mind. It comes from a theory of counseling called dialectical behavioral therapy, and so it's DBT for short. And so it is just a very basic skill, but DBT, which I am trained in, does focus on emotional management and emotional regulation. So really this theory of emotional management breaks it down into 3 different aspects. We'll have the reasonable mind, we'll have the emotion mind, and the beautiful place in between is when we can blend, that very rare place, right, is where we can blend both logic and emotions. And so that is kind of the theory that we're going to be working from. It's a really short kind of 2 slides, but I do want to work through this with you guys and think through, when are we way too rigid and logical, and when are we fluctuating all the way into just emotion? Because we really know that really wise people can use that intuitive self for our emotions. We don't want to negate those, but we can't live out of those emotions. Emotions are indicators for action, but they shouldn't be decision makers. So that can help us make decisions, but it shouldn't be the only thing we're considering. So here, you'll also see this a lot in relationships, by the way. So we tend to have 2 different types of thinkers, and sometimes, of course, together the beautiful union is finding ourselves in between. I know men tend to be seen as the more reasonable and women the more emotional, but we'll see it flip-flopped also sometimes. So let's not get too stuck into gender roles, but also keep an ear out or eye out for this. You might see this in relationships. So if we are in reasonable mind, a couple indicators that we are there is that you'll be cool, rational, and very task-focused. So this is sort of, if we're looking at masculine and feminine energy, this is more of the decisive, take control. You know, I always like to use this example. If we're running a business, we might say, well, I don't have enough money, we're cutting 3 different people. And that might be very logical and reasonable mind. But over here, emotion mind might be like, oh, I can't fire people. That's just, like it's their livelihood. Wise mind might say something of in between, right? So cool, rational, task-focused. An indicator we are in reasonable mind is when you are ruled by facts, reason, and pragmatics. So again, it's sort of a little bit too much. If you guys are familiar with attachment styles, this may tend to be more of the avoidant attachment, where we're kind of avoiding emotions, we're avoiding the desire to kind of open up and be more vulnerable and sit with the truth that we carry. So that's going to be reasonable mind. And any thoughts on that? Anything to add, or things that you know when you're in reasonable mind and maybe too driven and people fall on the wayside? Anybody want to contribute to that? Yes.
I use my reasonable mind with my dad when he was in an assisted living place.
Okay.
Well, he wasn't in an assisted living place yet. He was in rehab. And I said, then he coached me and said, he really needs to be in an assisted living.
Right.
He doesn't restore your house anymore. He lives
Yes.
by himself, et cetera, et cetera. So I remember the day that I was moving into this assisted living. He had toured it with me.
Yeah.
It was fine. So the day that I was moving, we were sitting down, and the human resource person was there from the rehab center. And I was like, okay, Dad, are you excited? We're going to go soon. I don't want to go. I'm like, okay, Dad, but, and I give this long list, but it's really good. You're going to like it there. They're going to get your blood pressure every day. They have an exercise room. You can get your hair cut down below. They have mass once a week. It's just everything that this is what it's going to be like. You saw it. You liked it. We moved your stuff there. We set up the room really nicely. I don't know. I'm like, all right, I'll be right back. Down my brother. John, gotta get over here, because he's not doing this. Not doing this. My brother comes down. Hey, Dad, what are you doing?
Sure.
Well, I'll do it just for 1 month because you and your sister asked me.
Sure. Yeah.
So I couldn't do that role. I was not, I shut that whole emotion.
You had to, right.
You know, he was never going back to his house again.
Yeah.
He never saw his house again.
And that's exactly
And I couldn't do it.
right. That's where we have to, sometimes, you know, again, when we tend to be in a relationship, if we have somebody that's polarizing to emotion, sometimes we have to polarize to a reasonable mind or too logical. So that's a perfect example of when you had to depend only on logic because you knew that that was a step, even though it was emotionally difficult, you know? And maybe even some of that fell under wise mind because you're able to navigate, I feel bad and this is the best step. So maybe a little wise mind there. We'll give you a little, you know. Yeah, so this is, we tend to either go full reason or full emotion, right? So this is, there's room for this. We want to make room for wise or logical decision making. We're not saying it's not great, but we're saying when it's too polarized, we're losing out on this emotional self, which let's look at this beautiful emotion side. So when we tend to be only emotion focused, we tend to be too hot-headed. We tend to be mood dependent. If we feel something, we want to impulsively act on it. And also just very emotion focused. So again, remember, emotions should be a part of decision making, but not our decision maker. And so that's part of why we actually need both. You know, and in many ways we were created with both. That there is an intuitive, an intuitive emotional self, but there needs to be the logical self, right? So this is the beautiful place in between where we have wise mind. And wise mind is going to set you up, again, if we're doing attachment language, avoidant attachment, this would be more of the anxious or maybe even disorganized attachment. Then we have the secure, where emotions and connection, my individual self and connection with other is important, but there's wisdom inside of you. So the wisdom inside of you, you're able to connect with that emotionally and also logically. So a wise man foresees precaution, sees danger and takes precautions, right? So there is some wisdom in seeing issues, but we have to take those and solve those problems both logically and intuitively. And so seeing the value of both emotion and reason, remember if we're too task focused or too logical, we're devoid of emotions, and again, this is too impulsive or irrational. Being left and right brain together, that's also a great way to think of that in terms of finding wise mind. And then we also have the words that they use in that DBT model that I mentioned. A lot of times we reference this as the middle path. So this is a really beautiful place for us to land. And again, we want to blend both logic and emotion. Thank you, is it Roseanne, for sharing about the logical and reasonable mind that you had to really depend on in that moment. Does anybody want to share maybe an example of when you felt maybe mood dependent or very emotional? I have been there myself, so I think again, our society tends to see our men as more maybe emotionally avoidant and or more logical. Not necessarily the case, and certainly not for every male. And women tend to be more of that anxious attachment style or more of the like emotion driven, right? So those are overarching gender stereotypes, but certainly that can be flip-flopped, and humans are humans and we're individuals. But we have to acknowledge when we are in emotion mind to get us regulated back into wise mind. We might feel scared about something or feel like, I can't do that. That's terrible. That's a bad idea. That's awesome. That's awful. Oh, it's so bad. But then we had some logic kind of pull and tug us towards this wise mind. And then same thing with you or your partner or your kids or your friends, right? Like they may need to soften. You may need to soften a little bit and be like, okay, well, let me think through, like for you, right? Maybe thinking about how that impacts your partner and thinking through, okay, hold on, I'm being so rigid and so logical and so like maybe, so we have to acknowledge when we're in reasonable mind and we need a little bit tug this way, and when we're in emotion, and we need to tug that way. A very simple framework for self-regulation, and we cannot regulate emotions we are not willing to identify. So having, again, this framework is really very important because it does allow us for some self-regulation. If we don't understand that we're too logical and we're devaluing emotion, how do we add emotion to that equation? Same thing, if we're not acknowledging we're too emotional, how do we add logic to an emotional equation unless we have this framework, right? So that's the beauty of our states of mind. It's a very simple layout for emotional regulation. Again, it comes from dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT, where we teach self-regulation skills. So that is that one. Any thoughts on this slide so far? Yes. Yes. I'm sorry, I can't see your name tag.
It's harder to be in a wise mind when you're tired or stressed. I feel
Yes.
like, the day I'm like, okay, I'm good, but if I'm tired or stressed, it's so much easier to go with the other two, and it just regulates.
I love that. Absolutely. And part of also what we want to make sure you take into consideration are what we call vulnerabilities. So vulnerabilities are something like sleepiness, feeling tired, maybe exposure to some of our extended family members can also be a little bit of a trigger, right? I do a lot of family therapy. So that can so we know that there are vulnerabilities, maybe weather, driving at night, or feeling like, maybe technology is a stressor, So we just have to kind of be aware of what may be triggers for being an emotion mind, or maybe if you're dealing with, right, like we might tend to go logic-minded and I need to warm up a little. Again, just a really cool tool to gauge where you're at. With kids, sometimes we'll call it, we're running too hot or too cold, and this is just right. So that's another way to look at it.
We call it the Goldilocks.
Yeah, right? Yeah, basically. We say, how's your engine? And so sometimes we need to we're too shut down emotionally, we're too hot emotionally. We want to be like Goldilocks, just right. So that's the thought there. Any other thoughts? Thank you for your addition to the wise mind and vulnerabilities. Any other thoughts? No? So let's go to our next slide. How are we on time, by the way? I didn't have we're good? Okay, beautiful. So these are some of the ways that I help or kind of help people understand both their vulnerabilities on either side. And this is something where we can help you to move more towards that middle. Again, if we're looking at this from a relational aspect as well, avoidant, anxious, secure. And this is going to allow us to both see the other person and be seen. This is going to make us maybe too logical, or maybe even our own needs on this side. Or if we tend to be this is also only our needs. This will put us in a place where we can blend others' needs and our needs. So yeah, that can be part of the extremes. Let's start with reasonable mind. If we are trying to warm up with some emotion, we need to be a little bit warmer. Remember, too cool, too hot, just right. We can check in with our body to see if we are having any of those gut checks or those emotions that might feel like, oof, I don't feel so good, but I'm just trying to function only off of logic. So our body becomes a beautiful tool to see and scan, am I feeling any emotions right now? And that's a beautiful way to warm up. Identify your feelings. Sometimes people literally just need to slow down and do a feelings check. Sometimes if you're going through a high stress time, you can literally start to check in with yourself, especially if you tend to self-abandon and tend to over-function in relationships or at work, and we're going, we're very task-focused. Sometimes setting a timer is great. Using a feelings wheel, which I don't know if you guys have seen those. I didn't bring any with me today, but they have some of our core emotions, and then we increase our languaging into more complex or different adjectives to describe emotions. And so that is a feelings wheel. Active listening is a great skill to slow down and start acknowledging other people's emotions or the emotions in the conversation. Active listening will be where we listen, but before we talk back, we actually reflect the content or the emotion of the other person. So we don't hop into giving feedback right away or excluding how that other person might feel or how we feel even. And take a 10-minute timeout. Sometimes we just need, if we're feeling tired, to remove ourselves from the stressor, just to kind of check in with ourselves so that we're not just bulldozing through a task. Put a pin in it is a similar thing, especially relationally. We can use that to kind of like stop trying to be so logical or rigid, and that can be a great way to check in with your own emotion or the emotion of another. Asking how this might impact others around me. So again, we're trying to awaken the emotional system if you're too rational. And then identifying choices. So that can pull us back again into wise mind. Rather than just saying in that example with the company, I just have to fire XYZ amount of people. It's like, well, let's start to consider some alternatives. Let's widen the gate a little bit, right? And identify the speaker's emotion. So this is similar to active listening, but this specifically caters to hearing somebody else's emotion or really kind of speaking from that place of emotion. So yeah, any other thoughts of how we could warm up a system that's very task-focused or very logical? Any thoughts or things that have worked for you if you identify with being too logical or too task-focused at times, or almost rigid and like, this is what we're gonna do and we're going for it, right? Anything that you feel like might soften that approach a little bit? Yeah.
So sometimes me as task-oriented, I'm like, I'm doing this, and I'm not leaving any free time for anything that
Beautiful.
comes into it or whatever.
So literally scheduling a pause to kind of, okay, increase some emotion and give yourself some time, right? Take things that are so logical or linear and start giving yourself some time to back up, zoom out a little bit, and make room for the other aspects of your needs, your emotions, how you feel, how the other people around you feel. Beautiful, beautiful way to get to the middle. Yeah? Did you have a thought?
Oh, no.
No, okay, sorry, just checking in. Okay, so we will move over to emotion mind, and this is a huge part of learning self-regulation. So it can be super overwhelming to have our emotions, and we are really trying to down-regulate our nervous system. So our heart might increase, right, or our thoughts start racing, or we feel really scared. And so that is a biological experience of emotions. Emotions can both be physiological, biological, or they can be psychological. And many times they're very much so both. If we can have that awareness of what our body is feeling and what our thoughts are, what our mind is experiencing, most of the time our body's trying to tell us something, our mind is trying to tell us something. So a lot of these are gonna actually cater to us slowing down our thinking, slowing down our body, and helping us to infuse more logic and not just function out of only emotion. So the first one that we have is a visualization. There's actually a script for this through DBT, but I put it up there because you can kind of do your own visualization. A visualization might be for a snowflake on a lake is literally just imagining sitting next to a lake. Everything is very calm, and you literally watch a snowflake fall. And that visualization, again, our body can't tell the difference between what's real or perceived danger. It goes off of our thoughts and what we're presenting. So by doing a visualization, you can help down-regulate some of your body, and we make room for more logic. So that's snowflake on a lake. We have 4, 7, 8 breathing. You breathe in for 4, you hold for 7, and you actually breathe out for 8. And the reason the last breath is so important, we want to shorten the intake, which is exciting to our system. It's sympathetic arousal. We want to take a moment to hold it, that's 7, and then the 8 is parasympathetic function, or rest and digest. And that's why we really focus on the out breath. So that's calm our system down, right? And meditation, there's a lot of meditation apps and different, does anybody meditate? Yeah, Lauren, Vivian meditate. Okay, we got some meditators. Okay. So meditation is a great tool. There's a lot of great YouTube videos. There's a lot of apps, a lot of great, awesome visualization tools that you can use, or meditation tools.
Podcasts too.
Podcasts, yes. Hilgert, did you have a thought or something?
I'm just wondering, what do I do with the idiot that's driving slow and fast in front of me?
Yeah, we're gonna out breath, long out breath, Hilgert, long out breath, right? Yeah, so let wifey drive. That's what. So guided gratitude journal. Oh, I love gratitude journals. It's such a small thing that can shift us into, instead of a lack mindset, into this abundance mindset of that we do have more than enough, that there is more than enough, that we already have our needs met, that there is just plenty, right? And we take stock of what we actually have. Anxiety is actually an overfunction of focusing on what we don't have or problems that we do have and perceive that could be happening in the future. A gratitude journal pulls us back to presence and helps us to regulate, be a little bit more logical, and stay kind of in that place of gratitude. We also have guided imageries similar to meditation. Meditations can be quiet. They can focus on the body, or they can be visualizations. Guided imagery specifically would be similar to Snowflake on a Lake, where you actually use images or pictures to induce a feeling state in our bodies. So that's what guided imagery is, in case you're wondering what the difference. So that's a beautiful tool. Similarly to warming up our emotion, to calm down our emotion, being still and just taking 10 minutes to kind of check in with yourself can be beautiful. I love this one. This is adaptive versus maladaptive anxiety. I want you guys to remember anxiety is a helpful function for survival. It is. Our anxiety is our ability to see problems coming in the future and plan for them. However, that's adaptive or helpful anxiety. Maladaptive anxiety is when we are trying to plan for something we don't even know is going to happen. And maladaptive anxiety, or not helpful anxiety, it doesn't help us adapt to life. It actually eats away at our peace of mind. So remember, if it's healthy or adaptive anxiety, everybody's going to have that. Everybody's going to have anxiety of some sort. It helps us prepare to take precautions. But when it becomes maladaptive is when we're trying to solve for something that literally we cannot plan for. We're worried about our finances. We have a budget, but we're worried that that budget 10 years or 15 years, like what are, like sometimes we can't even control some of those variables. Let's control the variables that we can, but otherwise we're into rumination and playing a game that we can't really plan for. Plan the best that you can, and that's where anxiety should end. Self-care, that's always a nice one. Simple, but it helps us, to regulate and kind of calm down. Things like a bath, I know that sounds so silly, but putting some magnesium in there, that can help, right? Susan, got a good head nod over there. So yeah, some self-care, getting a pedicure, slowing down, like giving yourself a chance to enjoy a glass of red wine or a favorite show or something, that's a beautiful thing. Find the dialectic. A dialectic is where two things are true at the same time. I can feel scared and I am safe. Wow, that doesn't feel true, but that's called a dialectic. Two polar opposite things being true at the same time. I'm really rage angry at my partner and I love them like crazy. Or vice versa, like they're upset at me and I'm totally lovable. So those two things seem like they're polar opposites, but they can be true at the same time. So that's called finding the dialectic. And again, here, similarly to reasonable mind, we have put a pin in it, which helps us to slow down a little bit, to get regulated into a deep breath, focus on the out breath, and kind of calm down. And forgive me, I don't remember your name, but you had mentioned vulnerabilities. Yes, what was your name again? Joella. Okay, yes, oh yeah, you work up front, that's beautiful. Taking a nap or having a snack. Ladies, sometimes our basic biological functions are part of what is informing our emotions. We are both mind, body, well, all mind, body, and spirit, so we have to take stock of that. So just remembering that there are things that will make you more vulnerable emotionally is really important. So any thoughts on that? Yes, Lauren.
I use several of these.
I love it.
In yoga, they use the 4-4 breathing. So breathe in for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and that's how you move through yoga.
Yeah.
So yeah, the breathing one is really good.
Yeah.
Putting a snack in it is a great option as well. My boyfriend has learned that very well. Every time I get a little too hot-headed, he just pushes a snack at me and says,
Yeah, I love that. He's like, back, here's a snack. Throw it in the cave, right? Food, get our food. Actually, now that you mention that, when working with addiction, this is the last thing I'll say, but during addiction and then the recovery of addiction, a lot of times they have to acknowledge how emotional they actually are. So we say, halt, hungry, angry, lonely, or tired are all triggers to use, right? But also they're all triggers for emotion mind. So just remember, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, those can all be triggers for us being stuck in emotion mind as well. So that is all I have to tell you guys today. This is my contact information. So I have some of my flyers or handouts if you'd like to connect or touch base. I do free consults. So even if you just want to touch base for 10 minutes or something, I'm happy to do that. There is an option to schedule that consult online. So yes, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. I don't get allowed to come into this room many times. So this is my second time I get invited in, so I'm pretty pumped. Great to see you, ladies. Been great to be with you. Christina, that was fantastic. I can probably identify 3 or 4 things that I had to learn over the years dealing with my emotions. Your niece knows mine goes up and down a lot. She tends to be the stable one. Believe it or not, so we have the reverse thing going on here, but I just echo with probably the way you guys feel about this is that skills for good living doesn't just come naturally. I found talking to folks like Christina in our industry super helpful to understand how this works. So Christina, thank you so much. It's been phenomenal just to sit back there and listen to you and go like, yeah, I think I use 4 or 5 of these specifically. This topic right here is kind of, well, let me give you an example. You know, they say it this way, the stock market, if you would, in the last 40 years, if you look at the stock market and you look at the S&P 500, has averaged 8.79% over a 40-year period of time. It would have made you twice a millionaire if you started with $10 back 40 years ago. But the average investor during that same period of time has earned 3.59%. What's the difference between 8 and 3%? The stock market in itself is not the problem. It is ran close to 9% cumulatively over 40 years. But the average investor has only gotten about 40% of that. Why do you think that's the case?
Emotional investment.
Exactly. It's this topic right here. Of everything I can tell you about investing, the biggest predator to your entire investing process is this one word right here, emotions. That's it. That's why this discussion will either make you tons of more money or will cost you tons of money. Right, we call it human financial behavioral science. There's a topic on this now. You'll learn about human financial behavioral science. All right? Essentially teaching guys like us, stop your clients to get too emotional or stand in the way when natural emotions is wanting you to do what natural people would want to do. Right? They say the market is like a roller coaster ride. When last has any of you guys been on a roller coaster ride? Has it been more than 5 years? Has it been more than 10 years? Okay. Go back. I want you to picture the last roller coaster ride that you had. Close your eyes. Where were you? Must have been in one of our wonderful theme parks, right? Okay. How did you feel, Kim, when you were on the roller coaster?
Awesome.
Was it awesome for you? All right. That's how I feel. It's like a plane ride, isn't it? It's super cool. It's like a fighter jet, right? It's awesome, right? You were probably like me a few times and just I closed my eyes, right? I mean, my stomach was right here at times, but for most part, you enjoyed it. Anybody here that has the opposite experience of Kim? All right. How was it for you, Yanis?
Just looking at the roller coaster makes me nauseous.
It's a nauseating experience, right?
The funny thing about roller coasters, when I go on one for the first time, I'm super anxious about it, I don't know what to expect. But once I've been on it, I love it. You know,
Yeah.
you know what to expect.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just breathe deeply and want it to be over.
Don't even get on.
I think the one thing that roller coasters pulls out of us is just raw emotion, right? I mean, how can anybody tell you to get on a roller coaster and not feel it? If you don't feel alive on a roller coaster, I don't think there's much left for you, right? You're gonna feel it. The same thing has to do with money. Now, the reason money is so charged is that money is our survival. Money helps us survive. Money helps us do a lot of things, pay a lot of bills. Money allows us to do things and not do things. There's a lot of emotion around money, am I right? I'm finding just for myself, the way that my mind was wired around money had a lot to do with the way I grew up. Kind of what was modeled in my parents' house, if you would, right? Isn't it the case? And then I marry Yanis, and it's a different story there, right? And we have different emotions around money. This discussion is just loaded. So if there's a way for us to be able to breathe deep, right? Put a pin in it, put a banana in it, I don't know what else, but stop and get over to the rational side. I just want to share a few tidbits with you about how do I move into the rational side? How do I embrace what comes my way? I'll say this to you guys, is that as we think about this topic, right? It's fear, it's greed, and it's impatience. Has any of you also felt that? Has anybody also have felt that with me? Fear, greed, impatience. Those are the biggest emotions that happens here, right? Fear when the market just did what it did about 2 months ago, right? It's just dropping like a rocket. I literally walked out of my office, told the team, they'll tell you. I walked out and made this big announcement and says, okay guys, it's been a while, but today the market is down by 9%. You know, last time I saw that was COVID. And ridiculous, the market doesn't go down by 9%, right? This is the tariff game played, the negotiation game that created that tremendous amount of down. So hey, that's just fear. Greed says, hey, the market goes up by 20-25%, money for nothing and chicks for free. There's a song like that, right? Money for nothing and chicks for free. It's easy come, easy go. Give me more summit, double down. That's where that comes from, right? NVIDIA, everything goes on black.
Videos back on MTV.
You know, NVIDIA, everything, boom. Before NVIDIA, it was another stock. Before that, another stock, right? It's craziness. And then impatience. But can we just get this thing going? Can it just grow a little bit faster, right? A lot of times our expectations and the way it's connected to that is the biggest driver for that. So hey, if we can help align expectations, that seems like what I do a lot today. We use financial planning to be able to create a context, right? You all have seen the charts that you've seen. But one of the coolest things that Christina mentioned, I'll just tell you, this is one of the coolest experiences that I get to see every day, is when suddenly a person eventually let go of the fear of not having enough. What a moment that is for people. I can see it in our clients' eyes. I remember distinctly starting to work with a gentleman. I tried to become his advisor for 5 years. One of his clients introduced me to him. He was working with the Merrill Lynch team, you know, and he was just a Merrill Lynch guy. The first time we showed him the chart that we show you guys, the longevity of your money, and by how much money you will die with at the end of your life, this guy, a hard-nosed Italian business guy, was in tears. He's 64 years old, he's got $50 million, and he feels poor that he doesn't have enough money. Nobody showed him that future projection. He could never let go of that chart. For guys, it's worse. It's more worse for guys than it is for gals. Because we see ourselves as the guys that needs to provide, that fill the gap, that needs to drive, make sure this is all taken care of. It's really bad for the guys. But that release was phenomenal. Okay? So planning is what gives us the context. But emotionally, you got to still go home and believe it. You got to go home and believe it. You know, is Hildegard full of it, or is the planner full of it? No. You got to go home and believe it. And when you start releasing that, yeah, I have enough. Like we grew up in Africa. I mean, number one in Africa is like nobody's got ever enough. You grow up in survival mode. And so it takes a while to bridge over to success or maybe significance and ultimately surrender. That's the highest high of life. That's when I release. And the moment I release, I can have gratitude come in. And this dollar doesn't move me as much, right? That's our emotional journey with money and wealth. So just a few more statistics around that. You know, the brain is wired for survival, not investing. So it's natural, right? So when the market drops, it's natural for you to feel the way you feel. I'll say, take a breath. Right, Christina? Go have a conversation with Christina. Have a conversation with us, right? So it's either a fight or flight. And different people have different levels of anxiety towards this. But look, one, because most of you are my clients, I'll tell you, you're in great hands. You're in awesome hands. I also say that our financial industry has developed beautiful tools that can mitigate that anxiety for you. Okay, downside protection tools. You heard me talk over and over and over again. Roseanne has to hear it twice today. We were in a strategy meeting. We were talking about this. It's powerful, guys. It's powerful. I love it because it manages people's anxiety. Okay, it gives them some downside. And then, you know, either or you got this dopamine deal going, right? It's like this is playing the stock market on a constant basis, right? You're just playing the stock market. So, hey, I have emotions and a reaction. Fear drives me to sell. Greed gives me overconfidence. I want to buy high. I mean, listen, it sounds rational. Buy low, sell high. 101. Can we do that? Like real estate, Vivian, isn't that the number one rule? That's the number two rule. Number one rule is location, 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 right? Listen, can I buy high, can I buy low and sell high? I don't want to follow herd mentality. This is something that's very, very powerful. It's real. Everybody else is doing this. Yeah, just go do the opposite of everybody else. How many times have you experienced that to be true in your life? Go do the opposite of what most people do, right? This world seems like, if you look at it, it's pretty chaotic. It's in chaos. It's really in chaos. If you want normality or you want solidity, go do something different in the world. Impatience, recency bias, basically says it's like, hey, it's this assuming that recent events are indicative of future results. Because it's coming out from year, it's indicating to that. Planners can be, a lot of times, I can make mistakes like that. All right? Just because it happened in this sequence of 3 to 4 months doesn't mean that tells me exactly where it's going to be. It gives us an indication of momentum, if you would. All right? So I have a very, very robust investment team that studies momentum. There's measure to that, but momentum goes away quickly. 2 or 3 months, momentum is gone. This is just interesting. Over a long period of time, 1926 to 2024, that longer period of time is 10.4%. I gave you the last 40 years. But 10.4% average rate of return. This is the S&P 500. 73 positive years, 26 negative years. Best way for me to say it, guys, here's the expectation. In every 10 years, there are going to be 3 negative years. Go in and expect that. Just know. It's 3 out of 10 is negative, 7 is positive. Right? In negative years, how many times have you felt like in life, you're in the middle of a storm? If you can just stand straight, if you can just stand upside and not going back, you're winning like crazy. Right? How many times have we experienced that in life? Right? Same thing here in markets, right? Okay. Consequences of emotional reactions, missing the best day. Have you heard of that, guys? The problem is that when we sell, when it goes down, when our emotions gets a hold of us, the market jumps back. And we're not in the market, and that's why we're losing out big time. Does that make sense? Okay. So if we're missing the best 5 days, here's a person in the market, 1.6 million is what money turned in 10,000 in 1979 to 2025. If I'm just out the 5 best days of the markets, when is the best day in the market? Can anybody guess? When's the best day in the market?
Nobody knows.
Okay, watch. I'm going to show you a trend. This is interesting. Very paradoxical, but logical when the best days is in the market. The best days in the market tends to be at the bottom of the market. Check this out. Here are the different downs in the markets, different periods of time. The average down is 30.6%. So here's what happens. When the market goes down, it goes down fast. Shoo! And big. But check this out. The average return 1 year after the market stops going down is 43.8%. The best day in the markets is just emotional, just we are people. The pendulum swings over way too far, and then suddenly we have a +9 day. At about the height of pessimism. It rips back so fast. That's why it's impossible for anybody to be able to see it. It's impossible for us to see it. Nobody can time that out. Okay? So, you're up 43%. If you 3 years into it, you're up 65%. You were down 30, but you're up 65. I'm pointing you to the right-hand side of the screen, right? Okay. Are we getting the concept? Can anybody time it? No. So what helps us out to kind of create the context is the planning. When do you need the money? It's probably the biggest key question. What is the purpose of the money and when do we need the money? Is the purpose growth? Is the purpose income? And when do I need access to it? So if we're rational, we can pull the money apart. We can say, this is the growth part. I don't need it for 10 years. I can take all the risk in the world. Okay, I know my 10-year average is going to be positive. Okay, if I need money to you tomorrow, it needs to be in very, very safe accounts. You've heard us say that. We actually implemented that in your plan. That's why we are so proud of all of you. Because in this market downturn right now, I've gotten 0 phone calls. 0. We serve close to 500 families. Nobody called us. We communicated very proactively to help you think through that and work through that. Okay? But look here. It's crazy. We were down 18% year to date at one point in time. Here we are 1 to 2% positive year to date. That's a 20% swing within 3 stinking months. It's craziness, right? Okay, you guys are all smart. In fact, what I want you to do is the next time you see the markets do that, be an investor. Call me and give me more money. Let me buy some more. Fair enough? Planning is creating the context. Market declines are temporary. No one can consistently time the market, not even the pros. Okay, downside protection tools in the right perspective of where the money needs to be invested are the key tools to give people more staying power. That's why we're exciting about it. I'm solving the #1 issue people have, emotions, by the smarts of planning, context, downside protection. I want to end with just this. Here it is. The stock market is a device that transfers money from the impatient to the patient. Okay?
I like that.
From the known to the unknown. From the informed to the uninformed. From the families that have planners to the families that are doing it themselves. So do me a favor. If this is helpful for you, if these events are awesome and a great spot to bring, to help you bring friends, introduce them to what we are talking about here today. A lot of times what we're trying to do here during these events is just love on you, bless you, give you great speakers like Christina, and talk about things that can help you build a very solid life and very solid wealth. So thank you for your time today. Enjoy some great wine.